we collect stories and circulate life-changing wisdom. I am your host, Asher, and today I have two incredible guests, Sheena and Michelle. No, Michelle is not a she's not a first timer to this podcast. She's been on here before. We had a long chat like last spring, I believe, and now she's back again because she's just got some juicy stuff we gotta talk about. And we got Sheena first time on the podcast. And so far the conversation sounds like it's going in the right direction. So I want both you two incredible ladies to introduce yourself. So far, the conversation sounds like it's going in the right direction. So I'm gonna start with Sheena first. Incredible ladies to introduce yourself. So far, the conversation sounds like it's going in the right direction. So I'm gonna start with Sheena first. Incredible ladies. Could you
So
guys hear
I'm,
that?
yeah, I can hear it. So
You
I'm
could hear
Sheena.
it? Okay,
Yeah,
sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead
no,
now.
you're good. I'm Sheena. I'm from Boston, Mass. I am a health and wellness coach, mostly online. And most of my health and wellness experience, truthfully, comes from my own, difficulties and challenges surrounding like addiction and truly not knowing how to love myself. And in my business, that's sort of a big part of what I do is helping people tap into that deeper space so they can start making choices that are more aligned with who they truly are and not covering up all those darker parts of themselves.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. And pardon the technical thingy in the background there. Michelle, how about you, my friend?
I just wanted to say that's really beautiful, Sheena.
Thank you.
You
Hi, I'm Michelle O'Hare, and I'm from Black Mountain, North Carolina. I am a BodyTalk practitioner, and I'm also an internal family systems practitioner. And I help people to unearth different belief systems that are basically running in the background and impacting the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual bodies. And I also help people to shift any kind of ancestral, any kind of esoteric kind of burdens. And I also help to heal inner children. And I basically went through life as a very wounded child. Even as I grew up into like a woman body, I was still a very wounded little child in there. And life circumstances brought me to where I started unearthing that in myself and started learning how to look at every different aspect of myself in a more understanding, more compassionate, more loving way, and also healing my own inner children. And I just brought that experience forth to help the people that I do now today.
wow. Thank you so much for sharing.
That's
And
beautiful.
for those that are watching us live, go ahead and put hashtag live in the chat. If you're watching this on replay, go ahead and put hashtag in the replay. Just let us know that you're listening and that you find value in this conversation. But today's conversation is on Monday's theme, which is around first time experiences. And we get to share our journey about some of the first time experiences we've had in our life. So we're gonna start with Sheena today. Sheena, if we had to start with your journey, what are one of that big first time experience you've had that really left a really incredible impact on your life that you would love for others to kind of understand and connect with you through?
So I am going to touch upon one of the darker moments, and I think it just helps shed light on how a darker moment can truly be the pivotal turning point for you because it led me on this much deeper path. And I love what Michelle has shared already because we often talk about like generational trauma, and it's just like we don't, what do we do with that though? I can intellectualize it all day, but to truly like transform how your nervous system and how your body and how your heart reacts and aligns to things, it's very different in practicality and in real life, right? So what I'm going to talk about, my first experience was the first time that I felt like I didn't have anyone in my life to show me how to cope with a negative emotion. And so the way I used to react to things was pretty self deprecating, very self harming. And all it took for me was something that, when I look back at, seemingly small present day, like if this happened present day, it would just kind of roll off the back like water. But as a child, we take it, we internalize it, and then we do become these wounded inner children. And, I'm not going to lie, sometimes it still hits me present day in different ways. But there was one moment And this was the moment that I hated my body. Like I had such disgust for my body. And I was walking home from grade school, and it was a young man who didn't know that I could speak Spanish. And he basically said, "Keep walking, fat girl," when I turned around and looked at him. So that day I went home and I cried and I cried and I cried. And then my reaction to that was to binge eat and then force myself to throw up. And that was the first
Mm.
time I recognized like how deeply other people could impact me and how deeply other people could influence me, but also how I didn't have any source of unconditional love in my life. And I needed to mask that with some sort of pain, and pain equated to me love when I was younger. And so like this was the deepest way to love myself then, but really I was just protecting myself from further hurt, from further pain, from things I didn't want to feel. I didn't want to feel the unworthiness. I didn't want to feel unlovable. I didn't want to feel abandoned by my parents. And I masked that in so many different ways. And that was my first experience of self-harm. And it just sort of progressed throughout the course of my life. And it deepened and it became more impactful. But I think when you get to the deepest point of your pain is when you could truly start to shine the light on it. And that's
Mm.
when you can truly have a transformative experience and start to recognize, like, I'm the adult that takes care of me now. And I get to make choices that are truly deeply loving. And I get to use discernment to really truly say, like, this is a loving experience. This is what unconditional love feels like, rather than that self deprecating and self harming behavior, because it's all I knew.
Wow.
Mm, yeah.
Michelle, I love you so much already.
Oh my God. I'm gonna throw this at Michelle. Michelle, what are your thoughts on that, by the way?
Oh, when Sheena, when you said that I get to give to myself, that is like the epitome of what I do with IFS. It's like we get to be for ourselves what we needed at that time. And that's really where that healing comes from, because we so many times we're like holding out our hands going, please, give me that, and it only lasts for just a moment. We're always collecting ohms, but really the only person that can love us truly is ourselves. So
Mm.
that is just fantastic.
Mm.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And I love when you were talking about compassion earlier, because if there's still parts of ourselves that we truly hate and we haven't come to accept, if we're judging that in ourselves, we're definitely judging in other people. And so you can
Mm.
really only extend that unconditional love to the extent you've given yourself that grace. And moments, we're all human. I think when you have the awareness, though, you can pause and react to it a lot differently and then ask yourself truly, like, what do I need right now? And most of the time, we need a hug. Most of the time, we just need to love on those parts of ourselves even deeper rather than reject them and push them away. And that just leads to more self harm and more deprecating behavior and more masking in some way, shape, or form.
Absolutely.
If I had to ask you, Sheena, so you mentioned self-harm. What does that look like for you that was so major that you had to make some shift?
So I was bulimic for a couple years. Eventually, that led to cutting. Eventually, that led to excessive alcohol use and drug abuse. And then, interestingly enough, even the healthier behaviors become this excessive compulsion. So I eventually got into weightlifting, and in a lot of ways, weightlifting inevitably did save my life. But weightlifting even became a form of self harm because I would do it in excess and I would
Mm.
run myself into the ground. If I ate something I perceived as bad, I got to go do some cardio and I need to do it like yesterday. And you still had that internal feeling of like, I'm not working out because I love my body. I'm working out because I'm trying to destroy my body. And in a lot of ways, you get to a point where even exercise becomes a form of numbing. And so I numbed in any way possible and always looking for that next high. Like
Mm.
even men became a form of addiction. Like I became sort of a serial monogamous because as a female, you don't want to be looked at as these derogatory terms. If you're sexually active at a young age, people look at you in a very negative light. So for me, it's like I always had to have a boyfriend, but in reality, I was kind of using that boyfriend in a way for the love I didn't have for myself. How can I fix and change and heal this person in ways that I don't want to look at myself yet. And it becomes very destructive for both people because you're just trying to heal yourself through that other person. Um, and so, pretty much any way addiction can manifest, it has manifested in my life. And now it's like I sort of become the self-love junkie, and I'm okay with that because I don't think you can give yourself too much of that. And but I do like I still struggle in intimate relationship dynamic. It's one of the areas that I'm continuously working on because that person triggers your deepest wounds. They really do. And if you haven't cultivated the space to really say like I can sit with this and I could sit with this person and allow this person to fully see these parts of me that are still scary sometimes when I look back at. It's still kind of ugly in a lot of ways. And that's where, again, you need to dive in deeper and say, I need to give myself even more compassion and even a bigger hug in these moments that I'm having those negative feelings. Because even when we say negative feelings, we're attaching judgment to it.
Hmm. Thank you for sharing that, Sheena. And Michelle, if you had a mirror, Sheena's experience, what she just mentioned just now, through your own experience, what would that be for a first time experience for you?
A mirror of hers.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, mm. Yeah. I um I went through I went through the cutting thing too when I was young. Um my my father, who my parents were divorced, and my father didn't he would get married every once in a while, and his wife would send like little um Halloween cards or something like that that had like those little pins, the little Halloween pins. Did you have those when you were young? It has this little um stick clasp, and I used to use those to harm myself. And I didn't feel like I was doing it for like attention. I think it was more of to um, distract myself. And I mean, that just started becoming like the mode of travel for me, was just to distract myself from what was going on. And I found myself like always daydreaming, when I was younger, about when was Prince Charming going to come and save me, from my house, and someone that was gonna love me. And I just kept looking, in teachers and men, like when you have like daddy issues, you like look
Mm-hmm.
to like older men and stuff like that. And I was always very attracted to older men. And when I finally got out there, I was always like going from relationship to relationship, just like just like trying to find this person that was going to make me feel whole. That was going to make me feel like that I was somebody, that I was worthy. And I did that like my whole life until I got into this current marriage. And I realized there was like a lot of codependency that was going on, in the relationship. It was almost like I had to prove myself, and do like everything with all these kids to prove that I was worthy of this love, that I needed to keep it, that I could keep it, it wouldn't go away, and I would do whatever I had to prove I was worthy of it. And then one day, I I had to figure out and realize that I'm worthy just because I exist.
Mm-hmm.
And so since then, um, I'm happy by myself. I'm still married, but I mean, I'm happy by myself, and I I don't know, I get that goodness, from my spirit, from God. And it's just like a whole different, when I look at myself like years ago, I'm like, dang girl,
Mm-hmm.
you were hurting so bad, and it's like, look at us now, just kind of giving the system like an update, what we do in IFS, we update the system. Okay, this is what we're doing now, because a lot of parts of our ego structure personality is still stuck in the past. and they're still like running with those same like modes of travel, and they still think, oh, we're still being abused, oh, we're still on drugs, you know, we're still like living on the streets, you know. It's like, no, 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 look, this is what we're doing now.
Wow. I love where this is going, by the way. You guys got so much in alignment that I don't know what today is about, but today's about really connecting you two, I think, because you got so much in common. And I noticed you was, kind of got smiling, shaking your head over there, Sheena, when Michelle was talking. So I'm curious what was going through your head when she was talking.
Just so much relatability for sure. And I think one of the beautiful things about connecting with Michelle is I connect on her pain, but I connect on her love too, because I
Hmm.
see the transformation and that just elevation of her connecting deeper with her soul. And that's truly what it's about, because everything from when I was a wounded child up until now has been egoic construct. And it's like I've had so many ego deaths to a point that, like, there was a point in time where, and it wasn't even that long ago, where I was crying so much that I didn't think it was ever going to stop. And I was crying because I was letting go of the outdated
Hmm.
identities of me. Like, even just saying I'm an addict, you identify as being an addict, and that becomes part of your programming. And it's
Mm,
like even saying I am a recovering addict. You're saying you're in active addiction in some ways versus saying like that's a past version of me that doesn't even exist in my paradigm anymore. I don't, and it's funny, right? Because now it's like, for example, I used to overthink every single thing I ate. Every single thing I put into my mouth, I thought about it like, did I eat too much? Was that the right thing? When do I eat again? Should I not eat for the rest of the day? And now I don't even think about it. It's like food is nourishing for my body and I love it. You know, it's that simple now, but it took me a long time to get here. And going back to her point, even about the cutting, because I kind of thought about this a lot. A lot of the things for me were also hidden. So I didn't think at the time, like I personally was doing it for attention. But subconsciously, it's like I wanted to, because to your point, it's like, hello, come save me. I'm dying over here. I am literally dying and nobody notices. Yet at the same time, my own inherent contradiction is everything I did was covered up. Like I went from anorexia to bulimia because anorexia was too difficult to hide. People could see
mm,
that you're not eating. People don't see you throwing up behind closed doors. And any area of my body that I cut, I made sure that nobody could see those marks. So it's like it was hidden, and yet at the same time, it's like crying out for help inside, just wanting somebody to notice that you're in this much pain and wanting them to just take it away. And that's not how it works, you know? Nobody can take that pain away. It's like you have to go through it and you have to move through it and you have to allow it to sort of almost transmute into this more powerful transformation, because back then I didn't believe in God. I hated God. Every part
yeah.
of me was like, why would God put me through this experience? And now I know it's like I can help other people at a level that some people will never understand. And that's okay. It's not their journey. And I could tell Michelle gets it. She's nodding over there like, yes, yes,
Yes.
Sheena,
yes.
we're gonna be
What
friends,
like what did
Sheena.
you get, Michelle? Share it. Yes, I want to know. I want to hear it.
Just the mm, there was too much.
There's
I'm
a
like
lot.
um I guess the part that I remember is about through that experience, you get to help people on such a different level. And that's one of the things like with me is I'm very relatable because I've been through just about fucking everything.
Yep.
Mm.
And it's like, you know, when my clients come, you know, they'll come with like, let's say shame is like a really hard one for people to, you know, to encompass. And so I'm like, can I tell that part of you like about my shame that I used to carry and how my inner children like carried it as like a stain on their face, you know, thought that we attracted, you know, like all the pedophiles and stuff because we had that black stain on our face. And it's like when you can share these stories with your clients, they're like they soften and they're like, "Oh, this person doesn't judge me. She knows what it's like. She was crawling on the carpet trying to find little bits of meth that might have been in that carpet. I mean, that's low. Like I can't judge anybody."
Mm. You guys mentioned a couple of things that you was addicted to, so forth and so on. So I'm gonna ask you this, Michelle.
Hmm.
Like, we got those lowest depth, the highest peak, but what was that one of those thing, first time experience of something that took you to that lowest depth that after that it, it caused you to go to a highest peak later on in life, but what was that lowest depth first time experience for you?
When my son committed suicide,
Mm,
that was the lowest depths because when he did that, my whole shadow just that experience and then all my shadow from childhood was like, whoop,
mm,
I'm here. And I still had 3 children at home to take care of when that was going on too. So it was yeah, it was the darkest, the deepest because it's so final. You think you have more time and it's like that's out the window. And I remember being very angry at God at that time because I thought it was like a sick joke because I didn't get to raise him, because of the addiction and because his grandparents were very connected to the law enforcement in Mississippi. Mississippi's the good old boys state. And I wasn't in the club. And so they kept me from him. And I met him and he like killed himself 6 months later. And I was like, this is a sick joke.
mm.
So yeah, that was the darkest, and that's actually been the most fruitful thing that's ever happened to me as well.
And from that depth, where did that took you for the highs?
Mm. Within that, I found my heart. Um, Within that, I found this ability to understand the deepest of human suffering, like possible. Um, I learned how to be able to sit with people and myself through tears and disgust and any array of emotions, and I can just be there. I can be that presence, and it's very firm and unshakable, and yet it's soft and it's kind and gentle. And my son doing that made a healer out of me.
Mm. Made a hero out of you. I like those words.
Yeah.
Sheena, you look stunned.
I can just feel how deep and profound that transformation must have been because the pain of losing a child, I can't think of anything in this world that compares to that level of suffering.
Mm.
And I could
Yeah.
just feel it.
Seems like both of you guys are very feeling driven.
Yep.
Yeah. It seems like, yeah, it seems like you guys got some really good antennas for feeling right now, for feeling people's space where they exist and the emotional state is not
Yeah.
as common as it should be. But how do you guys handle people that comes around in your life that are suffering and you can see the suffering for them? Like how do you respond to that, Sheena?
First and foremost, I just be with them through it because you can't take it away from them.
Mm,
And they have to go through it, the experience, to transmute it and turn it into something powerful and impactful. And it's truly this, you can't even describe it into words until you've gone through it because then we just sit there intellectualizing the experience rather than actually feeling it in our body. And it's very, and not even just feeling it in our body, but connecting again deeper to our heart and deeper to our soul's purpose. And so when somebody's going through it, you just sit with them through it and you give them so much grace and so much compassion. And you even tell them, like, hey, it's okay to distract yourself in some ways because sometimes you do need a break from the pain. Sometimes you really do. And you just try to help them and guide them because they truly have the answers for themselves. Like, I don't have the answers for anyone. All I'm trying to do is guide them to deeply connect with themselves so they
mm,
can feel into what their next right choice is. And sometimes the distraction's necessary, like maybe you do need to go watch and binge Netflix for a couple hours and just take a break. Um, because it can feel extremely overwhelming. And sometimes, like when you're in it, you don't see the light at the other side of it. until it's there. And, it's not always just this white light moment. Sometimes it's gradual because, to Michelle's point earlier, you reflect back, even the person I was 3 years ago, and I'm like, holy growth. Like there's parts of me that like I can actually say today, and I couldn't say this 3 years ago. Like it took me a long time for me to say I am proud of myself. And so
Mm.
when you're sitting with these people, it's like just connecting them to their humanity and allowing their humanity to be okay with whatever it's feeling. Like, it could be anger, it could be rage so intense that they just don't know what to do with it. And it makes people feel out of control. But the truth is, the control is an illusion. Like that's the irony of it all. So it's like once you're able to actually sit with and say, I am effing angry. Like I'm surprised I just didn't swear right now, to be honest with you. I am full of rage, right? And that's okay. These are human feelings. As soon as you start rejecting those parts of you, that's where the bypass comes in. I don't want to be this angry. I don't want to be this rageful because I don't know what I'm capable of. Am I capable of truly going and killing somebody? Am I
Mm.
capable of causing harm on myself or another person? And the level of self harm that I've inflicted on myself, I've shown myself I can't be that person. Like I am capable of that. So it becomes sort of this dangerous place of being able to support someone through it, but also that same awareness that I don't have the answers. Like, I don't have the answers. I'm guiding you to connect more deeply to what your version of God is and deeply to source and connecting deeply within yourself to know that it's going to be okay. It absolutely is going to be okay. We got to connect you to that other side of the pain, which is that light, because it's literally it's all one when we really let it all dissolve. Because the extent to which Michelle and I have experienced suffering is also the extent to which we can hold space and love people and
Mm.
get them to that deep compassion.
I want to go back to something you said. You said recently you could really say you're proud of you. Tell me how that feeling is like, because that sounds like a first time as well.
It feels like a warm blanket or just like a very warm hug and embrace. And it just feels very light. It just feels like it's just filling yourself up and truly like taking in your body every experience you've ever had and welcoming it all. And this is what I mean about rejecting parts of yourself. I couldn't talk about the fact that I used to cut myself. Like I couldn't talk about the things that I've done to myself because I was ashamed of them. Michelle said like the shame, that's such a huge one. The shame and guilt are the two biggest ones that I've experienced that have kept me stuck in that pattern, that cycle of self-deprecating and sometimes not even wanting people to see me. And not because I'm currently doing it, but because I'm still experiencing the feeling of what it's like to be that person. Like, oh my God, I'm so stuck in the past. And then judging yourself for not letting the past go. It's like,
Mm.
it's so crazy, right? It's not even being in the present moment experience. It's like I'm stuck in a place in my head that no longer even exists because neurologically, I'm now wired that way. And that's become my subconscious pattern way of being, right? And here's the crazy part about it. The rest of the world's looking at me like, oh my God, she's such a badass. She's awesome. She's amazing. She's doing all these cool things. She's helping people. And I'm still this little girl afraid on the inside that at any moment that rage is going to come out and I'm going to do something crazy.
Mm.
And yet I haven't done something like that in years, right? So there's no evidence. There is literally no physical evidence of me being that person anymore, but it does become part of your nervous system and becomes part of your DNA. And we could even go back further and say, like, some of this is generational healing that we're doing. Like, it's generational trauma. Both of my parents were addicts. And in some cases, your parents don't even need to be addicts, and that's your path. Like, that's just the life path that was chosen. So, for me personally, I truly believe this is generations and generations of really trying to transmute lots of pain. And that's why I can truly see myself because I'm actually finally facing it. But it's more than facing it, it's like embracing it for the power that it holds.
All of that on your shoulder, huh? The entire generation,
Well,
you
not
had
all
you
on
had a
my
break.
shoulders because
You
I
had a
have people
break.
like Michelle.
Yeah. No. But it's interesting when you said something about it's generational because we all manifesting the entire genetical brand from the offspring of everybody, right? So now you're saying that, well, right now you feel proud because you finally figure out you, and now you can say you're proud of you. That means you're proud of your past. You're proud of your parents, their grandparents, because now you get to like, okay, this thing is actually turning into something useful. So that's powerful for me to hearing. I'm like, oh wow, I feel that. And I see Michelle over there. You got your ears to the wire. What you thinking?
Oh, so many things you can go with. You can go in so many directions. Just generational healing. I was just going, oh yeah, yep, healed that, healed that, healed that. Just kind of going through different ancestral burdens that have come up, and the healing of those is so powerful. But the other thing I was thinking was when you said that you would be proud of, your parents and how they did things, because usually when you're injured and you have trauma, you're looking at what your parents did as you did this to me sort of thing. And so I see it as, wow, you got through that the best way that you possibly can, or that you could. Good job. So that's true. I mean, that really is part of the healing, is when we quit pointing the fingers and look at, it's hard being human. And everybody has like a set of tools and things that they're given, and given down from their parents, and ways that they've been taught to navigate and cope. And then there's all this personality modification, you're going through as a child, and you just lose yourself. And so, of course, they handled it the way that they could, the way that they did. I mean, what other choice did they really have? And so, really, it takes a special persons to be able to break that code, to be honest.
Here's what's showing up for me. I'm listening to both you share your journey, and I'm looking at like a family project. It's like a family project, and so many of us are working at this one thing over generation, over timeline, and eventually one of us gonna crack the code, right? We're gonna find the code and the right command to command this thing to operate the right way. And then you look at your parents or your grandparents, they struggle through the same thing, but then it gets to your turn to do it. And then finally, the last piece of the ingredient, you figured it out. And then you're like, oh my God, no, I'm proud of everybody else that worked in to solve this family project that we was all solving to kind of make a shift. So I'm thinking about you guys' story, like, oh my God, because I'm looking at my own past to the same thing of what my parents go through. Like I remember my dad I was talking to him about, his struggles because he lost both his parents by the age of 10. So he didn't really get no educational support. So, he kind of grew up not knowing how to read and so forth and so on, but he made a lot of moves that became successful because he was putting in the work. But then everybody started putting in the work, and I find myself in the process where I'm like, okay, so now I've figured things out, the gaps that was in my family that was missing. Like, oh, I'm the final piece to unlock this thing to kind of make the shift. And I'm hearing the same thing from you guys, just talking about your story, your everybody's part of this project, this family project we are working on and cracking the code. So what are your thoughts when it comes to this family project, Sheena?
So my thoughts are, I always go back to the saying, it kind of takes a village to raise a child, right?
Mm-hmm.
It takes all of us to be willing to tap into a deeper level of consciousness to get to this collective consciousness. Because to be honest with you, one of the biggest things I see present day is, don't get me wrong, I'm all for different causes, but oftentimes we go extreme with them, and then it divides us even more
Mm-hmm.
because we're attaching labels and putting each other into boxes rather than recognizing we all fall under one big umbrella, which is global humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And what is it to be human? To be human is to feel. To be human is to experience life how you're meant to experience it. But at the end of the day, like, if we can't have compassion for each other's experiences rather than judgment, and there's a few different topics that come to mind, but I won't go there because it can cause a lot of division even talking about them. And so when I think about it being a family project, I think it's just a matter of respecting each other on a level that recognizes and sees the humanity in each other, even if your experience isn't the same. Like, even if your perception and your worldview and your patterning and your conditioning isn't the same, because none of us are exactly the same. There's a lot of overlap and there's a lot of connectedness on different things. But at the end of the day, one person's experience could be vastly different than another's. And then that's where the judgment comes in. And that perpetuates the division, that perpetuates us from being connected on a deeper level and from deepening the compassion and love we actually have for not just ourselves, but each other. Like we can say, like, here's a perfect example. Let's say we said that the one cardinal rule and the entire universe that nobody should break is like nobody should ever kill someone. And then all of a sudden we're making exceptions. Well, if you harmed my child, then of course I'm going to kill you. Like, I'm going to do anything I can to protect my children. And then all of a sudden you have people making exceptions that they feel okay with.
Right.
And that exception, then where do you draw the line, right? And so it's like having compassion even for the things that you personally think are the most heinous things on the planet. And that's hard. That's a hard place to get to, especially when it's something that you've gone through. Because you're like, you don't know how painful this experience was for me. But that kind of keeps us stuck in victim consciousness. And Michelle kind of touched on this earlier. It's like, if I keep blaming my parents for the rest of my life, I'm not taking responsibility for my own life. They did the best they could with what they knew. And at some point, you have to kind of transfer that into gratitude. Like, I'm grateful that they helped make me the person that I am, because truthfully, I couldn't have done it without them. And there was a long period of time where I could not forgive them because they hurt me in a lot of ways that a child, in my opinion, should never have to go through. But even as I say that, I wouldn't be the person I am had I not gone through it. And that's the other side to the coin that I think we need to shift into as a collective. So we deepen that compassion for each other and each other's experiences.
Ooh.
Did I mention that you're incredibly articulate when it comes to this topic there, Sheena?
Well, we've lived it, right? So it's funny. I don't even like, okay, so this is the best part about this, as Michelle could probably relate to. I don't prepare for stuff like this because I'm talking about my life and my experience and how I view the world, and that's not something you can really prepare for. It's something you just feel. So we are definitely feeling beings, and I think if I had to be like have one judgmental statement for this whole thing, is not that men don't have feelings, women just tap into it at a deeper level. And I think that's where we can truly help everyone heal on a deeper level, because it's like having compassion for the fact that men are taught that it's not okay to be expressive, which couldn't be further from the truth. Like, you're a human. Of course you
Mhm.
have emotions. Of course you have feelings. Like, it would be ridiculous for us to think otherwise, but you're taught to stuff them, you're taught to mask them, and you're taught to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. And it's such an unfair paradigm for both sides, because actually women want to hear what you're feeling. That makes us feel more safe when you can express what you're feeling.
Mm. Well, here's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling the need to go over to Michelle's side of the house because Michelle, she already know how I feel about her because we talked before and she's incredible like passionate about stuff, and we talk about how socially and mentally and all that way that she comes across being articulate in her expression of stuff, because we talked before and like our depth is, oh my God, like the stuff she showed me, I'm like, oh my God, I don't understand how you got through this, my friend. So it is very powerful.
I
You know
believe it.
how much I think about how powerful she is. But going to your side, Michelle, tying into Sheena's expression just now, how do you feel?
How do um I feel like I agree with her.
Mm.
Yeah.
This is a feeling-centered conversation. So Ashley's in the feeling zone with both you incredible personalities around this your experience of life that I'm not even close to at all because yeah, this is not even my territory. But we're gonna stay with the feelings today because feeling is
Because
the
that's the theme.
I think feeling is the original language, by the way. I think we all speak feelings. Someone's better than the other, but I think feeling is the original language. Before you were able to express words, you was able to feel. Like as a kid, you could feel what your parents is feeling because you connected.
Mm,
So
yeah,
I
that's
think
true.
feelings is the original language. So if you gotta speak feelings to this topic that Sheena just talked about, Michelle, how are you speaking?
Mm. Well, there's so many different things that you can touch on. Um, when she was talking, well, actually, when you both were talking about our parents and the different, when the job comes to them, they do their best, and then it gets passed to us. And so
Mm,
I've noticed that in my life, there were themes that my parents passed down. And one of them was like, let's just push things under the rug. Let's just not look at them. Let's just ignore them. So that's been passed down, like God only knows how long that's been passed down. And so I started doing that a lot, especially with the drug use. It's like you start using drugs so that you don't have to look at that, even while you're like creating a whole nother like huge explosion of trauma, but I can't look at that. I'm going to keep doing this. And that was one of the things that I started not doing anymore is I look at everything. It doesn't matter what it is. I look at everything.
mm,
Another one was I'm worthless, completely, utterly worthless. And everyone would tell me that. I mean, I was told that every day. You're never going to be anything. You're stupid. Um, you're never going to amount to anything but shit. So I carried that around with me. And I'm pretty sure probably my stepdad's dad probably told him that, and maybe vice versa, on and on through the family line. And what's amazing is when we have a theme in our life and we're supposed to transcend it, it'll keep coming up out of people's mouths like all over the place, especially when it's getting hot and heavy and it's like really ready. You know what I mean, Sheena? It's really ready. And I, when I started doing the work that I do, it was really hard for me to do that because I was always looking for approval, like for someone to tell me, you're worthy. Oh, you're doing this right. You're doing a good job. And a lot of times I wouldn't hear that. I would hear people saying, no, this can't be the way that this formula goes. No, this can't be the way this pops up, because it's popping up for me. You don't know how to do IFS advanced work, even though I do. But I mean, it was like coming out of people's mouths, that I wanted approval from. And I finally realized I'm not going to get what I want out of these mouths. I
mm.
have to know that within myself. And so now I know I'm worthy, and I know that I can do these things, and that the way that things present themselves may not present themselves to other people, even the people that have taught BodyTalk, even the people that created IFS. It may show up this way and they can say, oh, it only shows up this way. Yeah, maybe for you, but not for me and not for my clients. So that was a really big one for me because authority figures, when they tell you, just like your parents, this is how it is, we hold on to that, and we go with it and go, oh well, I'm not going to ask any questions, I'm just going to go with that. And now it's like, that's your experience and this is mine.
Wow. Sheena, your side of the house, my friend. How is worth showing up for you? Because I love what Michelle just said.
Very, very much parallels what she just said. So if I just kind of correlate it to my younger experience and my younger self. So through my teenage years, through my 20s, absolutely all I wanted was attention. I just wanted attention because I never got it at home. And I would seek it out and seek people's validation in any way, shape, or form. And the craziest part is like, it was all subconscious. Like at the time, I didn't even know that's what I was doing. And when I reflect back at some of my behavior patterns, I'm like, of course you wanted attention. Of course you wanted to be loved. Of course you wanted somebody to just like she said, almost like save you from yourself in a lot of ways. Now the shift is you show up and speak your truth no matter who can hear you.
Mm,
And when you show up and speak your truth, that's what connects you deeper to yourself. And in some people, like I could have came on this call and Asher could have been like, this girl's from like another planet. Like I don't know what she's saying because I don't know much about you, right? Or I could go the other way. Like, I completely relate to that. I completely connect to you. You're like one of the biggest miracles I've ever met, and anything and everything in between. But if I stop speaking my truth because I'm so worried about what other people are going to think, I limit my own growth. I limit my own capacity to actually help people, because eventually you do connect and deepen with the right people that are meant to be in your path. And when I say right, like, there's no right or wrong. It's just the people that are meant to be in your life.
Mhm.
And some people are ready to hear it and some people aren't. And that's okay, because I've been there too. When I first got into recovery, for example, and most people can relate to this in recovery, you're the last person to know that you have a problem. I
Mm.
couldn't see it because I wasn't ready to see it. And so, same thing, like my attention seeking behaviors, my need for this validation. Even now, it's kind of like, if a client doesn't relate to me, they're not my client, and that wasn't me before. Before it was like, oh my God, what did I do wrong? What could I have done better? What could I have done differently? And then it's like you're over analyzing the entire experience. And so then what happens is you're stuck in the past. You're stuck in that cycle of unworthiness. You're stuck in that cycle of needing somebody else to validate your existence, when just being here gives you the right and privilege to live, like
Mm.
just being alive. Um, you don't have to do anything
Mm.
else. You don't have to do anything else. And so, where it honestly still shows up for me sometimes is in relationship dynamic. I get triggered easily in the early stages of it. Like, once I'm in the relationship, it's a little bit different, because then it's like my true self starts to come out more and more. But I feel like there's still times where I put up that wall and put up that mask initially, because I'm so afraid of still getting hurt and repeating some of my past relationship patterns. But this is something, like, this is an area that I know, like, I still have growth to do. And when the timing's right, it will happen. So I don't worry about it like I used to. Now it's more like a relaxed, like, okay, I see it. I'm aware of it. It will unravel as it's meant to, with who it's meant to, and it's all going to be perfectly beautiful. And everything I've experienced up until this point has allowed that for me to be at that place to start receiving that more. And so I totally relate with really just wanting validation. And I think most humans, whether they're aware of it or not, want that,
Mm.
because we all want this sense of belonging and connectedness. But truthfully, when you feel the most sense of freedom is when you no longer need it, is when you could just show up and be you and not actually need it anymore. You're just like, oh my God, this is so liberating. Like, I don't have to put on a front. I don't have to put on a show. I don't have to lie. Like me, I would cover up so many parts of myself because I'm like, you can't see that. That's dark. That's dirty. You're not going to understand. And yet the people that I'm hiding it from are like, hello, I was sniffing lines of coke off the carpet last night or a week ago. So it's like, that's the craziest part about our brains. We make ourselves the worst at everything. We literally make ourselves the worst at everything. And it's like, no, we're all human. There's no comparison. We've all done things that in the moment we weren't proud of. And we've all done things that, we are proud of. And at the end of the day, like, either way, you're attaching judgment to the human experience. And that's the part, once we kind of separate ourselves from, like, literally, if you tap into your soul on a deeper level, the soul doesn't judge. God doesn't judge. God's not judging your experience. Your human self and conditioning is what's judging your experience.
Mm. I think we can talk for hours. We got content for days. But we only got a short period. So we gotta wrap up a little bit now. And oh my God, you guys are meant to connect, by the way. You guys know each other, right? Never met before?
No,
No,
Okay. Oh my
I
God,
mean,
this
we
is
have
incredible.
maybe in another life.
In another life.
probably.
Yeah.
Mm. Well, here's the wrap-up thought. If you had to share, what are you most proud of about your life right now? From all you've been through, the journey you've taken so far, everything that happens in the past, all those keys you collected for these next door you get to open in the future, what are you most proud of right now? Sheena.
I would say I'm most proud of my capacity to love and extend that love and compassion to other people,
Mm.
regardless of any circumstance, regardless of whatever they're going through. There's truly no judgment. And I think that's why people just open up to me and tell me their life stories.
Mm.
So I'm proud of it, but I'm also extremely grateful for it, because I really feel like I'm at a place in life where take the ego aside, because it really isn't about that, I can truly have an impact on people's lives.
Same question for you, Michelle.
Mm.
Mm.
I just want to say that I agree with Sheena. Like that's absolutely one of the things. And the other thing was the thing you were just talking about with being authentic. And that's one of the things I'm really happy that I've landed in because who I am, I used to do that. I used to be like, well, I can't say this. I have to just a little bit. I can't show the whole thing because it's going to scare people off because I'm pretty different. And I have a lot of really different passions. I was really afraid to be out with one of the lines of work that I do, which is working with dark energies. You know, it's a very taboo subject, but I'm very passionate about it because of my children and their experience and what it does for people. And so I've started the conversation and just talking about it more and more. And it doesn't matter how it's viewed. It's like we can't make it like not taboo until we talk about it
So
more.
you talk about it.
So I talk about it, and so I'd have to say my authenticity and not being afraid to talk about anything with anybody.
Mm. And Michelle, if you can tell people exactly what you do, what you specialize in right now, like, like the people that you're being a hero to in the world right now, who those people are, what you do for them, again, and how they can find you.
Mm. Um, I I help anybody with any kind of trauma, any kind of background story. It can be just like physical pain, and then we can find out where exactly that physical pain is manifesting from. So I like to get to the root. I don't like to put short term little band-aids on anything. I like to find where it comes from so that you can clear it and so that people can, be free to live their life instead of surviving it.
Mm.
Um, you can find me on, let's see, I'm like blanking, innerhealingclinic.com. You can find me on Instagram, inner_healing_clinic, and also on YouTube at Inner Healing Clinic.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sheena, can you tell
I help
us? Yeah, go ahead.
I help mostly women, but men too, overcome any issues they have surrounding addictive behavior, specifically addiction around food, but it obviously extends to other areas of life. And I also help them connect more deeply through their bodies. So it's really threefold, like mind, body, spirit connection. And I do that through strength training and holistic nutrition. And you can
Mm.
find me on Facebook, Sheena Giordano. Or Instagram at Sheena, Shena, 110 _ So the best ways to find me.
Mm. Closing question. What is the one thing or two thing that when people do it drives you crazy? What would that be if you gotta share with me, Sheena?
Honestly, like it's funny because people generally don't drive me as crazy as they used to because it's just their stories, really. I
Mhm.
think if I had to pick one, it's probably the client that never pauses to really take it all in and they just keep talking and talking and talking and talking and talking. And I say that because, hey, it's okay, right? Like we've all been there, but they're not actually receiving what they need to receive in those moments because they're not allowing themselves the space to receive it. And it only drives me crazy because it would help them if they just took that moment and took that pause rather than getting wrapped up in the story.
Mhm.
But sometimes that's the process they have to go through. So that's a big one for me. I think the other big one for me is just, you know, them kind of coming up with all of these excuses why they can't do it right now and why now is not a good time because the truth is it's like when is a good time to connect more deeply with yourself and live a fulfilling life and be free of all the conditioning and programming. Um, you know, and that's the thing, they're always waiting for the right perfect time, and there's no right perfect time. Like there just isn't, you know.
Yes.
Yep, that one.
Okay. Oh, you got two. Those are two very two good ones. Michelle, what you got? What are the two or one or two things that when people do it drive you crazy? Talk to me.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, what Sheena said.
Yeah.
It's more like people come to your office and they're like, I'm suffering, my life sucks, I'm miserable, I'm in chronic pain, I have all this stuff. And then you go, okay, this is what you got to look at. This right here. And they're like, oh, fuck that. I ain't looking at that. Yeah. And it's just like, what? um so that's one of them, but all these things that like get on your nerves are so good to kind of turn back around and learn to have more compassion, because no one can be ready until they really are ready, and even if they tell you they are, that doesn't mean anything. I have a client that she has all these problems, and we finally got her nervous system to where she's not calling the hospital all the time, and having like a emergency. And but when we got to like the inner children, she's like, yeah, I need to take a break from that, and I need to go and look at my supplements and all the physical. And every time we come back, she's like, tells me her story, and I go, you know, there's never going to be a good time, because she's like, I just have to get to that right moment, like Sheena was saying, that right moment where I feel stable enough to do this work. And I'm like, do you know that you're never going to get to that place?
Mm.
And she's like, right. I said, you know, those physical sensations and stuff that's going on is manifesting because of that pain that you are trying to wait for the perfect time to look at. Yeah, but we'll get to that another day, you know. And it's just like, okay, cool, because you have to let them have their experience. And that was the hardest thing for me to do, was that I wanted to help them. It's like I intuit, okay, they need to do this, you know. And it's like, but maybe that will be 2 years from now.
Mm. Wow, that was incredible, by the way. You guys appreciate your time right now. Thank you for the generous use of your time coming on here and sharing your story, sharing your journey. And for the folks that are watching again, go ahead and put hashtag live if you're catching this on live, and go ahead and hashtag replay if you're catching this on replay, and let us know that you're watching and hearing us. And you're tuning to Pandora's Awareness Podcast, a place where we collect stories and circulate life-changing wisdom. And today you got wisdom with depth from Sheena and Michelle, two incredible healers, I would say, because nobody goes to that much pain and don't become a healer. I don't see how not. So thank you so much for your time today. Any last word before we go?
Just that I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful for the opportunity. I'm grateful to meet Michelle today. It's been a very beautiful experience, and hopefully, you know, somebody got something from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm grateful to meet Sheena too, and it's always nice to see Asher. So it's just really great to be here and to have these conversations, and hopefully something that comes out of our mouths can be helpful to somebody.
Absolutely.